Hi, everyone. I'm Evelyn, and this is Glow Podcast, where I preach the good news of the gospel and how you can be a light in the darkness. It's been a minute since I've been on here, since I've recorded. It's been months, actually. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But I'm back indefinitely, meaning that I'm going to be posting consistently. No more breaks, no more inconsistency, I should say. But I just wanted to kind of touch on that. It's been 2 years since I've uploaded my first post, and a lot of great things came from posting that first post. A lot of people enjoyed it. I got a lot of sweet messages. And this was a time in my life where I was barely getting introduced to the gospel in general, and really solidifying my belief in Yahweh and my just overall faith, because faith for me has always been this fairy tale, fictional word that you hear in stories and situations and movies where it's like, I guess, transcendent to hope. So to me, that's all it ever was, just a word. But for me, this past 2 years has really been just phenomenal in terms of really getting a concrete understanding of what faith is and what that means to me. And so I am excited to start this journey and, like I said, be consistent with it and just be posting regularly, sharing words of wisdom and encouragement, words that don't come from me. They come from the Holy Spirit. They are obviously inspired by Him, for Him, with Him. And so I'm really grateful that I'm in a place now where me and the Holy Spirit are connected. We have a relationship that is just so, so sweet. And it's left such a beautiful fragrance in my life. And I just really want to share that with others. And like I said, not do that in a place where my own personal life is just not healthy, straight up. Which is why today I'm going to share my testimony. Yay! Today's testimony day. I just want to share about those lows. Like I said, from these past 2 years, it's been interesting. So much has happened. But also it feels like just yesterday where I was going to church for the first time, reading my Bible for the first time, hearing the gospel for the first time, and just really being shocked by it, I would say. I think everything at the beginning was very shocking, and it was a lot to process and understand, and I didn't fully understand it. And even now, I still don't fully understand everything, but after having just a beautiful encounter with God, with Jesus, I have more of my hooks in it now that I could really share just how it's impacted me. He's impacted me specifically. How he's transformed my heart, renewed my mind, freed my soul. Praise Jesus. Like, just being free. That freedom and deliverance is just indescribable. There's no words to express it, but I'm going to try my best to encapsulate that today. So, like I said, so sorry for my break. For everyone who's new here, welcome. I pray that this podcast and just me sharing my stories and the things that I'm learning along the way would be edifying to you, and even for myself, that this is something that I just want to have for in the future. It's like a little time capsule. I can go back and look at my faith and how it was at that point in time, right now, 2025, and just see how I grow from here. So without further ado, here is Glow Podcast, and this is my testimony. Okay, so to start this off, I wanted to share a verse that really inspired me to put this whole thing together. I mean, it's my life. I don't really need a script to share my testimony, but this really empowered me because Like I said, it's been 2 years since I've posted anything, but it's been months since I've recorded anything. I started recording, trying to get back into the swing of things in, I want to say, October. And let's just say the enemy's a liar, bro. He has been trying to plot on me for real. Like, he does not want me to win. He does not want me to have victory, which the victory's already been set in stone. You know, the battle has already been won. And so why not testify about all the great things that God has been doing in my life? And he just did not want this episode to come out. I recorded it multiple times, had a lot of anxiety about sharing it with the world, even though I've already shared this testimony before. But just, yeah, a lot of fears, a lot of doubts, a lot of wanting it to be perfect. And that's not what it's for. It's not about perfection. We're not called to be perfect. We're called to serve the Lord with all of our hearts, all of our minds, all of our souls, all of our bodies. And so that's what I intend to do. And so I just want to encourage everyone with this verse and just with that little note about you don't have to have a perfect story. And testimonies typically aren't something, coming from something that's good. Obviously, it's usually something bad that happened that impacted your life and led you to Christ. But even then, it doesn't have to be one thing. It can be a bunch of things. It can be multiple things that don't really make sense. But at the end of the day, the one thing that does make sense is Jesus and his power to save. So I just wanted to encourage everyone with that, because even I had so many fears about this. But let me start off with this verse, 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. And so I think that definitely applies to me, as this story is pretty intense, but like I said, I wouldn't have it any other way. It led me to be in the place that I'm in right now, and it's going to lead me to so many more things. I already know it, because God is so faithful and he's been so good, and I'm just excited to see all the new things that are going to happen. And I just pray that for whoever's on the other end listening to this, that my story would be of encouragement. Even if you didn't go through what I went through, maybe you could just pick up on themes and certain events that happened within the story that, maybe you felt that same way, or maybe you did go through what I went through and you're kind of thinking, why me? What was the reason for that? Well, I'm going to tell you what the reason was, because I thought the same thing. I thought, what's the point of all this going on? What good is it going to serve me? Or was it just something horrible that happened to me? But it turned out to be something really incredible. So, without further ado, my testimony. Okay, so I'm not going to share my entire life story. But if you know me, you already know some backstory. But I'm just going to kind of go into, I guess, a little bit of my background. I'm 22 years old. I am from California. I'm a student full-time at a Christian university. I'm a full-time behavioral therapist. That's always a fun time. So full-time student, full-time worker. I recently started directing a dance ministry at my church, which has been a blessing. It's been interesting navigating leadership and just being in a position where I get to shepherd some really cool, beautiful, amazing young women of God. So those are the three main things that I'm focusing on right now. Obviously, being a full-time woman of God in general is tough, There's a lot of spiritual warfare and things going on all the time, but it's a great time. Wouldn't trade it for the world. But yeah, that's kind of me, my background. Yeah. But my testimony. So I was getting home from my first missions trip. I went to South Asia, and it was a life-changing experience for me. During that trip, I had a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, a lot of feelings of I don't belong here, this isn't for me. I knew that the reasons I went into it were good. I had good intentions. But somewhere along the way, I was still in sin. I was still deep in sin, habitual sin. Things were going on in my life that I was still really struggling with. I didn't feel free. I had already been a believer, because I'm a baby believer. I've only been a believer for about 3 years now. But, going on 4. But it's rough. It's rough going from not coming from a Christian household, not coming from any faith, and thankfully, I guess I didn't have to navigate the struggles of like coming from religion and cultural norms of just going to church and stuff. But on the other end, it was all new to me. I didn't have any experience, and there wasn't many people that I can go to. Actually, I had no people at this point in my life to go to and be like, hey, how can you support me? Or I have these questions here, I need answers. And so it was a lot of just trial and error. And even now, like with leadership and dance ministry, it's like trial and error. I have to try things and fail and try again and try something new and fail again. But thankfully, God is good. His mercies are new every single day, and he picks me back up every time I fail. But yeah, just a lot of grace for myself, for others in this process, because it's really interesting going from not believing in anything, not having any faith, like I said earlier, to having this just unexplainable joy, peace, love. It's a lot. But yeah, going on this mission trip, I knew I loved to travel. I knew that I loved God, and I wanted to use my gifts. I wanted to use them. I wanted to be used. This was a point in my life where I was like, I want to be used by you. But little did I know how much that would take for me. And being in a position where you are deep in sin and just not fully devoted to God, but you want to be used by God, that's a mixture for disaster, honestly. Not saying that God can't use you when you're, struggling or at a low point. But for me, personally, I know that I had the right intention, but I was still doing the wrong things. There's no excuse. Like, I was wrong. I was wrong for the things that I was doing, straight up. And so I can't blame God. Like, I can't blame anybody for the things that I was doing. It was me. It was my choice to do what I was doing at that time. And so, I couldn't be used to the full extent that I should have been used. I could have been used, right? I had so much potential. I just wasn't tapping into that at all because I wasn't fully surrendered to God. And again, I don't think I really understood what I was saying or praying for at that time. Like, I didn't really know what it meant. Like, hey, God, use me. That's not something easy to just say. But it changed my life for the better, I will say. So on that trip, it was great. It was a team of 4. We became really close, from basically strangers to best friends, Some of my closest friends in the whole world who I really love and appreciate and have been there for me and taught me so much. If y'all are listening to this, I love you guys so much. You guys were there for me in a time that you might have not known was literally the worst time in my life. But now I could say that experience really, really edified me, and I took so many things away from it that I can use now in my day-to-day life, because that was my first time working with a team of people. Again, I had to be selfless, and at this time I was so selfish. And yeah, my team, they deserve the world. Amazing people, God-fearing people who love to love and serve others. But at this time I was not doing good, so I did get sent home early from that trip, which was really devastating for me. I just felt very much like a failure. Like, I can't be used by God. And so when I got home, I definitely spiraled out of control. I had just gotten out of a relationship that I knew was not good because, again, there was a lot of sin there, a lot of struggles, which I do want to go into detail about later, because I don't think it's ever justified to keep that a secret, I want to put that out there. Those crazy details, because hey, it's real, it's real. So a lot of struggles with lust, with sexual immorality, impurity, all those things. just kept falling into it over and over again. And of course, at this time, I already felt very much like a failure and a loser and all these things. So when I got home, I was like, what's the point? I tried to serve God and it just bit me, in the butt. So what's the point of living a good life, a pure life, a life that's, in surrender to God? I really was angry at God at this point, but I knew I still believed. I knew he was real, and I knew that the things that I was doing was wrong. I felt like I was definitely like blaspheming him at this time, but I was just so angry. Like that anger, I didn't know what to do with it. So I just was angry at God. I was like, yo, like I feel like I tried my best for you and it wasn't good enough and you just threw me to the curb. And I think that just comes from a childhood of a lot of abandonment, rejection. I have a lot of abuse that I experienced as a kid. And so all those things just really, like, I already had that. And it was definitely surfacing from this whole situation of getting sent home from my first missions trip. And getting home was rough because my parents weren't all supportive at this time of me going on the trip in general. And so when I got sent home, it was a lot of like, well, we knew that would happen. We knew that this would fail. And so I just felt like I had nobody in my corner, and it just gave me all the more reason to be like, I'm giving up on the faith, even though I didn't say that straight up. I had given up completely. And so after being sent home, I was home for a while. I want to say about a month, where I was kind of just lounging around, enjoying my summer, not really doing much. And then I went to summer camp, which a friend of mine from my trip, actually, she told me about the summer camp that I could work at. So I started working there. Also a lot of great experiences there that I will take away for life. A lot of great people, just being able to love on kids and, share the gospel with them and worship with them and pray with them. So many great things that I, again, never done before. I've never worked on a team. I've never worked with other believers. I've never been in that position where it's just a bunch of believers gathered together, supposed to be, in one mind of one sound accord. Never done that before. And so it was a lot. It was a lot of first times for everything for me. But I loved it. It was great. But still, like, for me, that experience was great. But when I came home, it was just low again. It was a lot of highs and lows. And as a believer, our life should not look like that. It should not be a roller coaster of up and down, up and down. One day we're good, one day we're down. One day we're good, we can have low points in life. We could be in a season that's rough and stormy, no doubt about it. God's not going to leave you in that time. He's not going to forget you nor forsake you. But we shouldn't be back and forth, bouncing from sin to sin. That's not how our life as a believer should look. Be transformed, be renewed entirely. Amen to that. But at this time I wasn't transformed. Like I said, I had that belief, but what weight did that really have if I was still the same Evelyn? And so when I got home from camp, the same thing happened, just completely like low, empty. And I think this was the first time in my life I truly experienced depression. Depression is real, guys. It's real. I don't care what anyone says. It's real. And believers, I believe, can be possessed. They can be oppressed. They can be depressed. The enemy wants that. He wants to bring us down. And so I was a believer, and I was doing all the right things to give the enemy an open door to just fill me up with that depression. I wasn't being filled up with the Lord, so I was being filled up with hate and anger and rejection and just sadness from the breakup and from just not being in this environment anymore with a bunch of Christians, a bunch of believers. It was just back to my routine, back to being in a household with unbelievers and not having very many believer friends that I could lean on at this time, or a lot of mentors that I could go to at this time, or there was nobody keeping me accountable, which at the end of the day, it's no one's responsibility, right? It's me and the Lord that I have to go to for approval and everything. But there was nobody who had my back at this point. And so I was home and I was just down. I wasn't the same me. I had, throughout that year, I had been experiencing a lot of like friendship falling out and just a culmination of a lot of like no's, a lot of rejection. And so it was rough. It was really rough. I just felt like that whole year was a big bust for me. Like nothing good came out of it. Even though I got to travel the world multiple times and got to do really cool new things that I never done before, like there was still something missing, right? And so I just felt like I was in this place of being stuck in a rut. And so in middle school, I had a serious drug problem. Like every day I was getting high. Like I said, growing up, I had a lot of rough patches with, my parents not fully being there and, my dad being in and out of our household. So it was rough. I didn't have a lot of support back then. And so I would turn to drugs daily. And it was weird. It was just a way of like being numb. And I felt like it was just a funny little hobby to me at that time. I was a kid. I was 13. And so to me, I wasn't addicted, okay? It was just like a funny thing to do every day because I'm bored and my parents aren't home and nobody's ever going to find out about it. Great, cool. End of story. And I stopped one day when I believe I was a sophomore in high school. I just completely stopped getting high every day. And I thought I was cool, great. Like there's nothing there. See, I'm not addicted. I could stop anytime I want, this pride in me. And so little did I know, like that was actually something very, very serious that was actually so much more powerful than I thought. Not to say that drugs are everything and that they have the power to control you. No, God can stomp on the enemy and completely free you from anything, which is what he was going to prove to me here in this situation. But point is, I definitely had something that I did, a coping mechanism. I had a coping mechanism. I just didn't put two and two together. And so being in this place of just depression, I started doing drugs again every single day. And it was rough because, you're in a state where you start to slowly become a different person. And it's like your friends don't recognize you anymore. Your family doesn't recognize you anymore. And suddenly you don't even recognize you anymore. And if you've ever been in that position, I'm so sorry because I know the feeling. It's insane. Just wanting to get high every day, feeling like there's no hope, feeling like that's the only thing that makes you feel good, even if it's for a little while, even if it's for a second, just getting that rush and then feeling nothing, because that was what it was for me. It was like a rush of adrenaline at first, and then after that I would just crash out, go sleep, or whatever, and I just felt nothing, and everything around me was just quiet. And so I was getting high every day. And one night I had an incident where I got high and I contacted someone from my past. This person came over to my house and they sexually assaulted me. It was the most heart-shattering thing I've ever experienced because it was someone who I loved and trusted, and we had a rough relationship in the past. They weren't a good person. I wasn't a good person either when me and this person had a relationship, and so I don't blame them for the things in the past, but I loved this person. This guy, he was someone who I truly loved. I feel like for me, there had only been 2 relationships in my life that I felt like, wow, this is love, right? Which now there's no love like Christ-like love. No, nothing compared to it. So I could say now I did not love those people. I think it was just lust and the infatuation and all that. But at this time, I was like, wow, like this was someone that I really loved and trusted. And even though we had lost contact, like we will always love each other and come back to each other. And so I was in a low point. I was depressed. I was high. And this person came to console me, comfort me, and it turned into something that was the worst. It was a nightmare, honestly. I just remember being in and out of consciousness and things were happening that I didn't want to happen, and I was in just such a vulnerable position. And for the longest time, I believed that it was my fault. Like I had done something wrong. Like I was the start of it, which I definitely take responsibility for my drug problem. But nobody deserves to be violated in such a horrific way, taken advantage of. It doesn't matter, what the circumstances are. Man, woman, nobody should ever be used for their body, especially when there's no consent or when someone's in a position where they can't consent. So if you've ever been there, I feel for you and I love you to pieces, because I know just all of the grief and confusion that comes with that. And so after that whole situation, I was wrecked. I told my family and they were devastated for me. But it was rough. Even that, like, it felt like I was coming out, but I didn't do anything wrong in that situation. And so it was rough. It was rough to share that with them and to kind of expose this thing that happened to me that I still hadn't really dealt with. So that was intense. That was a hard thing to go through, especially the process afterwards. If you've ever been in that situation, just everything that happens, and with your body and the healing process and all the things you got to go through, especially with, like reporting and such. It's a lot of decisions. It's a lot of pain. I felt like I was reliving it over and over again. And I was so just broken at this time. So I continued to get high. I continued to cope the only way I knew how, which was just seeking outside validation, outside, acceptance. I felt like that was something for me. I felt like I didn't have, like I explained with the missions trip, that was my attempt to do something good with my skills, my gifts, and I felt like I was rejected. And so at this point, I feel like I have nothing to offer except for my body. That's the only good thing I'm for, I guess. And so as a woman, especially, I think, especially with our culture of like Jezebels and just a lot of emphasis on like body image and stuff, we get stuck in that, like, this is what we're good for. So it's either you embrace it, the bad bee life, you get with it, or you're just going to be ugly, And so I always felt like, oh yeah, I'm so attractive, this and that. And so after being violated, it was like, I felt ugly. I felt like I didn't have confidence. I wasn't attractive, which is really weird how that works, but that's how I felt. But at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not going to get off the train. I'm going to keep going, I don't want anyone to get an inkling that I'm like feeling this way, not confident, which is no good. That culture is no good at all, because we should not gain our confidence from our looks or how we're portrayed on social media or how men view us and lust after us. That's not where we should get our validation from at all. But that's how I felt. I was like, you know what? I don't want anyone to know that this is how I'm feeling about myself. So I'm just going to continue living my life. And so I was really deep into hookup culture and just nonchalant, like, I don't care, do what I want to do. And that's kind of where I was at. And so I was in a place where I was, hooking up and just doing the same old thing, again, stuck in this hole, like deep, deep, deep. And I didn't see any way of climbing out at this point. And so one day I was having a really rough day, and I had got home from work. And if you're anything like me, I'm an overthinker. I think a lot. And especially with like suicide, like I said, I believed in God, so I knew it was wrong. And I was like afraid to do it, because I was like, well, I'm going to go to hell if I do this. And so that's why I never really tried anything like that. But I'm telling you, even though I was a believer, at this time the enemy had his hooks in me. I definitely feel like that was a weird possession. It was my actions, of course, but the enemy was really like influencing me at this time. And I was having a lot of nightmares and attacks and just dreams about what had happened to me. A lot of guilt and shame. And so this day I came home and I didn't even think about it. It's the crazy thing. I didn't, for me, that's out of character, not to think about something before I do it. Because I think a lot. And so I went home and I overdosed. And next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. And it was fast. It was because I had overdosed. I was found. And when I was found, I was just like in and out of consciousness, and I was having seizures and convulsions and everything. And it was like time was going by so slow, but it was going by so fast. But in this overdose, and this is the part of my testimony that is just not a lot of people know about, but it's so raw. In this in and out of consciousness, I was holding my mom's hand and I was telling her, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And she was just telling me to hold on. You're not going to die. You're not going to die. Keep fighting until the ambulance arrived. And I was fighting for my life, let me tell you. But somewhere there, I was having a seizure from, what I was told after by my parents. I went, I'm telling you, it was insane just being transported here, sorry. God showed me the most incredible thing ever. I had this, I don't know how to explain it because it wasn't a vision. It wasn't a dream. I was literally there. I can't explain it. I was having a seizure and I was climbing up. It was like a ladder. It was like a ladder, but it had like branches, almost like a tree. And so I was climbing up. And I saw these angels and they were scary, but I didn't feel scared. They were angels. They were black, like silhouettes of angels. So they were all black, very big, very muscular. They had like horns. They were really strong. And so I was climbing up this ladder with like branches and stuff. And they were like, I was trying to climb up. And I see like this bright light at the top. And I see God. I see him. He's right there. He's like 5 feet away. So I'm almost to the top of this ladder. And from the sides, these angels just push me down. And that was when I woke up from my seizure or my overdose. And I was in the ambulance. And I had heard the medics in the ambulance calling my name, Evelyn. And I had woken up. And I think I had like passed out again. And then I woke up again in the hospital. But that encounter was insane. It changed the whole course of my life. I saw him and it was the most beautiful thing. Like I could just burst into tears right now talking about it. He's so beautiful and majestic and there's no one like him. I saw him and he pushed me back down. He had his angels push me back down because he's like, no, I'm not done with you yet. And that was the day that everything changed. After this attempt of suicide, I was admitted into a mental hospital. I stayed there for a week. It was the worst experience of my life. And I was very scared. I had a lot of fears. I didn't, never been in a mental hospital before. And if you have, God bless your heart. Again, I feel you. I'm with you. It's terrifying. It's like you're in jail. You are confined in a room. We all had a roommate. We all had a room. Everything was padded. Everything was like, there was no doors or windows or like privacy or anything. It was all just padded. No glass, no nothing like that. Everything was for your safety, of course, because a lot of people were in there for drugs or, suicide and stuff. And it just psychiatric problems. And so, yeah, everything's for your safety. Everything's like accommodated so that nobody can hurt themselves in there. So that was not fun. Just no privacy at all. It was one hallway. My unit that I was in was one hallway. Well, all the units were like this, but the unit that I was in was a hallway. And there was like a little kiosk where you can go up to the nurses and, ask for help, whatever you need. And then there was like a little room in the back, which was where we had our meals. There was a commons room with like 3 couches and a TV. So you could be there like the day room. And then there was this little rinky like metal box that was a phone that you could use to make phone calls. And so, yeah, it was terrifying, like straight out of a horror movie. Like the feeling in there is so off, and everybody's like highly medicated in there, so you're already off the rails. Like nobody's really fully there, but everyone's there because they try to kill themselves. They were a danger to somebody. They were, I met there were so many walks of life in there. I met people who had schizophrenia, who were bipolar, who were depressed, and so it was just a group of like the lowest people, I guess, in society. A lot of homeless were in there. Yeah, a lot of like extreme addicts. Like I thought I had a problem, but there was people in there who were really, really like having hallucinations, and like all kinds of crazy stuff went down in there. And I was only in there for a week. But yeah, it was about maybe 30 people in my unit, I want to say. It was all women. I want to say, yeah, about like 30, maybe a little less. But yeah, there was 30 women in my unit. It was insane. Like, it was like I had to like almost really guard myself, protect myself, like fight for myself. Not that I was causing a ruck in there, because I was trying to get out of there. I was like, I'm going to be on my best behavior so I can get the heck out of here. But you have to protect yourself in there, because some weirdos in there. God bless their heart, though. I have so much love for those weirdos in there, because I was one of them, and you're treated really poorly. And thankfully I didn't have crazy experiences with like nurses being crazy with me, because like I said, I was quiet. I was on my best behavior. I did not want anyone to think I was crazy, because I did not want to be in there for 1 second more. So yeah, it was crazy. Like, you couldn't shower alone. There had to be someone watching you. There would be like nurses that would come in and check on you every 15 minutes, so you didn't get sleep at night because there was always someone in your room. We had to wear ankle monitors the entire time. We got to go outside probably twice the entire week I was there, for about like 20 minutes. So I didn't really see a lot of sunlight that week. I was constantly just trying to call people because I was bored. Had nothing to do in there. I literally felt like I was going crazy. But thankfully I had visitors. My friends and my family came to visit me a couple times, and my best friend, he brought me a Bible. I was always reading my Bible in there. I didn't want anyone to know how I was feeling, that I was, still depressed at this time. Still depressed, because I wanted to get out of there. So kept myself occupied with that. But so many amazing things happened in there. I got to share the gospel with some people in there in Spanish for the first time. I'd never done that before. I prayed over a lot of women in there. And I received a lot of prayers over the phone from people, my loved ones. And wow, yeah, it was incredible. And when I was in there, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I actually was not able to be released. I had to go in front of a judge and be released against medical advice. So I wasn't free to go. But thankfully I won that case and I got to go home. And my family was just, seeing them in that state, was horrible. Knowing the hurt and pain that I caused them, the fear, and just worrying about me all week, wondering when I was going to come home, and me fighting, trying to go home, I wanted to go home so bad. But it was sad. There was no hope on the other end. I wanted to go home, but I even thought while I was in there, what's the point of going home if you're going to go home and everything's going to be the same? And I didn't want to have that mentality, but it was realistic to me. You're still going to be depressed when you go home, Evelyn. Don't be fooled. And so I saw glimmers of God for sure working. So beautiful, so powerful. He was working. His spirit was there with me. But I still couldn't grasp that. I still didn't fully receive it. And so flash forward, I'm home for a few weeks already, adjusting to regular life. Very difficult, by the way. A lot of trauma after the hospital. Everything I experienced in there in the unit was traumatic. A lot of things that I had to deal with. I had cut off all my relationships, pretty much all my friends at this time. I was very isolated. I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I was really on edge with my family. I didn't want to give them any inkling that I was still depressed because they were watching me, and I just didn't want them to know that there was still something up with me. And I just felt like I was fighting for my life at this time, literally fighting. it was a battle every day. Every day to wake up was a battle. Because all I knew was I can't try to kill myself again because it didn't work the first time. And I don't want to go back to that hospital. That was my fear. And I feel like I was so ungrateful. And I told myself that I was getting angry with myself. Why are you so ungrateful? Why are you so bitter? I don't want to be alive right now. But you saw God. You saw him. He's real. He showed himself to you and you're still ungrateful. You're still not wanting to live. But I was fighting my hardest to live at this time. And I don't think nobody's quality of life should be like that, especially not a believer. Your quality of life should not be like fighting to live. You should just be living, truly living, and we're justified by God, and because of that we can truly live. But yeah, it was rough. It was a rough transition going from the hospital back home, but all I knew was I can never touch drugs again, and so I didn't. After I got out of the hospital, never touched another drug. I've been clean for about 8 months now. After I got out of the hospital, like I said, I cut all ties with everybody, but also all of those sexual relationships, I cut them off, and again, been pure. Praise God for 8 months now. Everything that I struggled with at that time, just completely, all temptations, all desires for it, just God removed them from me completely. Praise Jesus. But let me tell you how I got to that state. And so one day I had a really rough night, wasn't able to sleep. I went to bed and I had a really brutal nightmare. I was having sexual assault nightmares every night, and having like weird visions of family members. I have a family member who actually committed suicide, and I was having like visions of him everywhere. I would see him and I would like feel his presence and just watching over me, and it was like this death was like just on me. Like death really wanted to have its grip on me and take me. And the sexual assault was so traumatic, and so I was having dreams and nightmares about that every night, those two things, suicide and SA, and it was too much. Nobody should have to bear that, especially not alone. But I had a really brutal dream, which I won't go into detail about, but it was a sexual assault dream. Like I was watching somebody else be assaulted, and those were pretty much how all my dreams went. I was watching someone else be assaulted and I couldn't do anything about it, but it was gruesome, like just not pleasant thing to see watching that. And I woke up and I was in a panic and I was sweating and I was crying and I was like shivering and I started throwing up from the dream. And so I called my dad, and my dad actually came over to where I was staying at, and we had a talk and we prayed together, which my dad was not a believer, so it was definitely interesting. And it was Sunday, so I was supposed to go to church that day. And I had been going to church, but it was just kind of like, again, fighting for my life. Like I was trying to cling to something, and I was like, just go. But that day I was like, I don't want to go. Like I just can't. I can't do it. But something told me to go. And so my dad, because of that, he was like, I'll go with you. And so my mom and my dad, they came to church with me. And my best friend, bless his heart, he went to church with me. And they were my support system. So they went with me that morning, and I went really, really devastated, obviously, from just the dreams and all the disappointment again and again. It just felt like I was never going to get better. I was never going to not be depressed. This was going to be my life forever. And I'm just going to be fighting every day to live and just having these nightmares and these attacks. And again, this quality of life is just horrible. It's like depleting you. It's draining. It's taking away everything, like slowly. Like I was losing so much weight at this time and then like gaining it back crazy. Like it was bad. Binge eating, not eating, and then throwing up. And again, I wasn't going back to the things I had gone to, like sex and drugs. So I was finding all these other things, which weren't great for me either. And just isolating myself, and a lot of acne. My body was going through it. It was rough, and nobody should live like that. But my second encounter was with God that morning. I went to church, and we had an altar call at the end of service, and everyone was worshiping, and we were told, if you need prayer, go up And so I was always that person. I don't need prayer. I'm good. I don't need prayer. Even though I knew what was going through, and I was like, I don't need it. Nope, not for me. And so I went up to the altar. I just was at my seat. I was like, I'm going to intercede in prayer for others. Cool. Swaying back and forth, like to the music, vibing to the worship. Wasn't feeling anything from it. At least I thought, right? And I was just like, yeah, I'll just pray for others who are up there. Cool. Great. I don't have to go up. I felt this just fire from like head to toe. And it stayed in my chest. Like it traveled to my chest and just stayed there. And I felt like God was literally pulling on my heart, like yanking at it. And it was so hot. It was like on fire, that like my chest was on fire. But I wasn't scared or anything. I just felt like heat. I was like, whoa, this is intense. Like it burns. My chest is on fire. I felt him like pulling me from the heart to go to the altar. And so I did. And my pastor and his wife came up and started praying for me. And that's when I just felt my heart literally like being ripped out. That's the only way I could describe it. My heart was being ripped out of my chest. And I know on that day, God ripped out my old heart and he put a new one in my chest and in me that day. I was like dragged to the ground. I literally like went down on my knees and just like everything started coming up. Everything started coming out. And I was just worshiping on my knees, prayer, being covered in prayer. And when I got up and left that place that day, I was a new woman. God put a new heart in me that day, and I never looked back. Like I said, after getting out of hospital, I had already been free from drugs and stuff, but it wasn't really because I wanted to or because I was free. It was just I stopped doing it because I was afraid of the consequences that I had experienced from before. And so, wow, God changed my life that day. He put a new heart in me. And ever since then, miracle after miracle, deliverance after deliverance, I've been seeing my friends, my family, people who have never believed in God come to the faith, my people who I've been praying for years, my family, my sister, my mother, people who just never had an interest in church or God. I've been seeing it, and just so beautiful. God delivered me and freed me that day from depression, from suicide, from sexual sin, from drug addiction, from abandonment, from rejection, all the things that I had been experiencing and all that trauma, all those nightmares and attacks, just gone. Never had another nightmare after that day. Never had another attack after that day. It was just something so indescribable, so inexplicable. I don't have the words to express my gratitude and just my joy that I felt these past 8 months of being free. And like I said, I've just been able to see, praise God, I've been blessed and privileged to see other people experiencing that too. And it's like, there's no way, because back then it was like, God's real, I can't deny it. But now it's like, no, I know he's real because I saw him, I heard him, I tasted him, I felt him. He's real. There's no way around it. And so, wow, just what a blessing it's been. It's been a real blessing. And my life just continues, like I said, to be just fruitful and multiplying day by day. And it's not about the blessings and the gifts and the spiritual, being all spiritual and whatnot, but just so real. Just that relationship that he had with me through my overdose, and then how he just kind of like signed, sealed that on the day, consecrated our relationship that day of my deliverance, just saying, I'm here, girl. You are my daughter. You are, a princess in this kingdom, and I am telling you, you are mine. He called me by name that day and said, you are mine. Wow. It was great. And so that's my testimony. And guys, I just pray, guys and gals, whoever's listening on the end of the screen, young, old, God loves you. And God sent his son to die on the cross for your sins, to live a perfect life, to be raised up again, to be crowned the king of everything. And if you just believe in him, he will show up, and show up in ways that are so beyond what you could ever imagine. Literally beyond your wildest dreams. He will show up and be there. All you have to do is believe and answer the call when he tugs on your heart like he tugged on mine. And in the midst of depression, of all these crazy things that happened to me, he saved me. And not only that, he saved me and used me like my original prayer was to be used. He used me in marvelous ways, in ways that, only he could have done, because I could never be used in the way I'm being used now if I was in the state that I was in back then, Only he did. God did, for real. And so that's my testimony. I'm so grateful for everyone who gets to hear this. Like I said, I'll be posting more episodes frequently. Gonna start getting it going with lessons, and I have a lot of great ideas and things that I want to put out there for you all to hear. Thank you so much for listening. May God bless you. May God be with you. May you have the peace and the joy and the love of the Lord in your heart and your life always, and share that with others. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is Glow Podcast. Now, go out and glow. Bye.